All right, hope everyone can hear me. I would just like to say hello to everyone that is here with us today. Um, we will begin shortly. Please keep in mind that this is a recorded session. We will give like maybe a minute for everyone to join us, and then we will begin. Thank you. All right, so let's start with today's session. So welcome to SAVEC's new webinar series that focuses on legal and financial aid during the pandemic for the South Asian community. I came up with this idea in the beginning of February this year is because financial and legal aid are significant issues that have escalated during the pandemics, especially for the South Asian community, and the community has questions and concerns that need to be addressed. So in today's session, our guest speaker will focus on financial and legal aid for individuals and families. And more specifically, today's webinar will discuss the differences between financial and legal aid, explain existing and new benefits that the government has provided, and talk about what benefits are specifically available for caregivers and mothers. We won't be able to address all questions in our 1 hour session today. So we will take questions in the chat box and we'll also do email follow-ups. That being said, today's session is not a source that provides financial or legal advice in any way. And I encourage that if you have a personal issue that you want to discuss, you follow up with a lawyer, legal advisor, or financial advisor privately. I also kindly ask that everyone keeps their mics muted and respect the space and our speaker. I would now like to do the land acknowledgement before moving on into our presentation. The work of SAVEC and the Council of Agencies Serving South Asians takes place on traditional Indigenous territories of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the territories of the Mississaugas of the New Credit. This territory is part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, an agreement between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This territory is also covered by Upper Canada treaties. Today, Tukaranto, the traditional Mohawk name of this area called Toronto, which means trees in the water, and its surrounding areas are still home to Indigenous people, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to meet, work, and play on this territory as settlers. We wish to express gratitude to Mother Earth and for the resources we are using, and honor all the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on the land since time immemorial. I would like to take 30 seconds or so to let this sink in, and then we will continue with our presentation today. So moving on with our session today, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Ikra Rafiq from SALCO. Ikra Rafiq is a staff lawyer at the South Asian Clinic of Ontario, also known as SALCO, where she practices primarily in the areas of immigration, income security, and housing law, and provides legal advice to clients in Urdu and English. Ikra is passionate about access to justice and creating a more just and equitable society for everyone. Welcome, Ikra. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Nimra. I just want to confirm, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, I am. It's a little
Okay.
faint, but I can hear you perfectly fine.
Is this a little bit better?
A little better, yes.
What about if I just move the mic a little bit?
Yeah, I think it sounds good now.
Okay. Okay. If at any point you're not able to hear me, please let me know. So as Nimra mentioned, today's presentation is going to be on some of the legal and financial aid that's available currently during the pandemic. And the information in this presentation is current as of March 2022. So also as Nimra mentioned, but which I will repeat, the information that's given during this presentation is just that. It is information. It is not legal advice. Nor is it a substitute for legal advice. If you have any legal questions, then you should reach out to a lawyer. And during this presentation, I will provide information about the different legal supports that exist. So let's look over the agenda. The first thing I'll discuss is Legal Aid Ontario. Some of you may be familiar with Legal Aid Ontario. Some of you may have heard of the name of Legal Aid Ontario, but you don't actually know what it is. So we'll look at that. And then we'll look at legal clinics and what they do. We'll look at SALCO, which is where I work, and what that clinic does. And then we will look at the different federal financial supports that exist for individuals right now, as well as the provincial financial supports that exist. So first topic, legal aid. So Legal Aid Ontario, or LAO for short, provides legal help for low-income people in Ontario, including a toll-free call center that gives general legal information and advice, as well as information about other social service providers in over 200 languages. So if English isn't your first language, or if you're assisting someone for whom English isn't their first language, they can still call the toll-free call center and indicate, which language they speak, and then get help directly in that language. Legal Aid Ontario also provides help from courthouse lawyers. They are called duty counsel lawyers, and they assist people who are in court without a lawyer. Legal Aid Ontario also provides certificates, which are vouchers to pay for a lawyer to represent you, for people who need a lawyer for some criminal, family, and immigration and refugee law problems. So what this means is that if you have a certain criminal law matter, or a family law matter, or an immigration law matter, or a refugee law matter that you need assistance for, so you need a lawyer to help you with that matter, you can call Legal Aid Ontario's toll-free call center, and they will ask you some questions to see if you qualify. So they'll ask you about your financial information to check if you are low income, and they will ask you what type of matter you need help with to see if it qualifies for a certificate. And if you pass both of those qualifications, so you are able to demonstrate that you're low income, and you're able to demonstrate that the type of legal help you need is in one of the areas of service that Legal Aid Ontario provides a certificate for, then you will get a certificate. And with that certificate, you can go to any lawyer that accepts them. And Legal Aid Ontario also provides legal consultation for victims of domestic violence. That is free legal consultation. And as far as from what I understand, it doesn't matter what someone's income level is for that. But I might be mistaken on that point. So I'll have to double check that one. Okay. So another branch of Legal Aid Ontario are their legal aid clinics. So Legal Aid Ontario funds 79 legal clinics that provide free services for people with low income. Clinics provide legal help for problems relating to basic needs, including income, housing, and human rights. And the services that clinics provide include representation in courts and tribunals, legal advice, law reform activities, and referrals to other sources of assistance in a person's community. There are 3 types of clinics that exist in Ontario and that are funded by Legal Aid Ontario. They are, number 1, community-based clinics. Number 2, student legal service organizations. And number 3, specialty and ethno-linguistic clinics. And in the next few slides, we'll take a look at each of these types of clinics. So the first I mentioned are community-based legal clinics. So community-based clinics help people in their local area with the following types of legal issues. So social assistance, which includes Ontario Works Matters, Ontario Disability Support Program Matters, and Canada Pension. Housing matters, so that refers to disputes between tenants and their landlords. Various employment law matters, so for example, wrongful dismissal, workers' compensation, and some immigration matters. Community legal clinics are staffed by lawyers, community legal workers, and sometimes law students. Each legal clinic is run by a volunteer board of directors with members from the community. All help is private and confidential, and it is provided free of charge. In order to qualify for community legal clinic services, your legal issue must be one the clinic handles. You must live in the area the clinic serves. So you can find that out based on your postal code. So for example, if you are living in Toronto, there are several legal clinics in the city because the population is so large. So based on your postal code, you would go to the clinic that's in your neighborhood. And one way to find that out is by you could call any clinic and they can let you know if you can go to their community-based legal clinic or if you're supposed to go to another one that covers your postal code. And then finally, to qualify for community legal clinic services, your income and assets cannot be above a certain level. So just like with Legal Aid Ontario's certificate program, an individual must be low income in order to get help from a community-based legal clinic. Now, the second kind of legal clinics that exist are student legal service organizations, also known as SLSOs. These are clinics that are affiliated with the different law schools in Ontario and where law students serve clients under the supervision of instructors. So the instructors are practicing lawyers. These types of clinics help people in their local area with some legal issues associated with the following. So family law matters, criminal law matters, social assistance, housing matters, some employment issues, some immigration issues, and also university appeals. And so that's a difference between, another difference rather, between student legal service organizations and community-based clinics is that student legal service organizations will help students at the university with university or academic appeals. Now, the third type of clinic that exists are specialty and ethno-linguistic clinics. So these clinics assist people across the province, and they provide services in a specific area of law or to a particular community. In addition to providing legal services to individuals, several specialty clinics also advocate on behalf of the particular community they serve. These communities include Indigenous communities, Black and other racialized communities, the elderly, children and youth, and injured workers and those living with disabilities. So the South Asian Legal Clinic of Ontario, or SAVEC for short, as Nimra mentioned, is one of Legal Aid Ontario's specialty/ethno-linguistic legal clinics. SAVEC specifically serves low-income South Asians in the Greater Toronto Area. The clinic is located at 45 Shepherd Avenue East in Toronto or North York. And at the clinic, staff can directly serve clients in English, Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, Sinhala, Bengali, Tamil, and Kannada. For all other South Asian languages, we have access to interpreters. And the clinic has financial eligibility criteria, but it is slightly higher than Legal Aid Ontario. So it's slightly higher than the criteria used for the certificate program. And the clinic is able to exercise discretion where warranted based on the impact that a client's case, will have on members of low-income South Asian communities. So let's take a look at the financial eligibility criteria. This is the most current criteria. It's as recent as January 2022. Legal Aid Ontario sets this criteria. Clinics don't get to decide the criteria. So for a single person, if their income is $22,720 or less, they will automatically qualify for the clinic services. And then from there, based on family size, the income level goes up. So when someone calls our office and, it seems like we might be able to take on their case, say, for example, they were let go by their employer and they think that there's a wrongful dismissal claim, and we ask them questions and it seems like there's something there, and we might be able to assist them in filing a wrongful dismissal claim. We always ask what their income level is. So, are they working? How are they financially supporting themselves? Do they have any savings? Do they have any assets? And these are questions that our funder, Legal Aid Ontario, requires us to ask, so that we make sure that we are assisting people who are low income and that financially qualify for the clinic services. So at SAVEC in particular, we assist in the following areas of law. So we assist with immigration matters, but not with refugee matters. We assist with income security. So if someone has applied for Ontario Works or the Ontario Disability Support Program or Canada Pension or old age security or the Guaranteed Income Supplement or EI, and they get denied or they get issued an overpayment or their payments get put on hold, we can assist. We also assist with housing matters. So we only represent tenants. That's across clinics. Clinics only represent tenants. We do not represent landlords. And we can assist in employment and human rights matters. And for employment matters, we only assist workers. We do not assist employers. We also provide basic information on family law, but we don't provide representation on family law matters. We provide lots of referrals to clients, especially in cases where we're not able to assist. We don't provide advice or representation in criminal or civil law matters. And we don't fill forms. So for example, if someone comes to us because they want to apply for Ontario Work, so they want to apply for the Ontario Disability Support Program, we don't assist with those types of applications. So we will refer them out to an organization that does that kind of work. So now I'm going to move on to the second part of the presentation, which is on financial aid. So one of the key benefits that still exists, and it existed before COVID, and it's existing during COVID, is employment insurance, or EI. And in the next few slides, we're going to look at what are EI benefits. So EI, it provides income support to individuals who have lost part or all of their income because they have been involuntarily laid off. So if someone quits their job or gets fired, they don't qualify for EI. EI is in situations where you get involuntarily laid off. Like say, for example, you are hired on a 5-month contract and then the contract ends, you may qualify for EI. When to apply? So if you qualify for EI, you should apply right away. Sometimes people wait until they get their record of employment, but you don't have to. You can apply right away. In fact, the sooner the better after you finished working, because if you delay filing your claim for benefits for more than 4 weeks, so if you wait more than 4 weeks to file for EI, you may lose some benefits and you won't be able to get those benefits back. EI will not pay you retroactively. How long do the benefits last? They can last anywhere from 14 to 45 weeks. The length of time depends on the number of hours of insurable employment in the past year that you've done and the unemployment rate in the region where you live. And how much can you get? You can get 55% of your average insurable weekly earnings, up to $638 per week. So who is eligible? A person must meet all 6 of these eligibility requirements in order to be eligible for EI. And the first one is they must meet the hours of insurable employment. And because of COVID, the federal government has reduced the number of insurable hours that an employee must meet. It is currently at 420 hours. And the government has indicated that this number will last until September 24th, 2022. It might go longer, we don't know, but for now, the minimum number is 420 hours. Again, as mentioned before, you have to have lost the job through no fault of your own. Number 3, you have to have been without work and pay for at least 7 consecutive days within the last 52 weeks. Number 4, you must have worked the required number of insurable employment hours in the last 52 weeks or since your last EI claim, whichever is shorter. Number 5, you must be willing, able, and capable of working. And number 6, you must be actively looking for work. And sometimes EI requires you to send proof that you've been applying for jobs. So you do want to keep those records. Now, there's another type of EI, and it's called EI sickness benefits. This benefit, it's part of the EI program, but it's different than regular benefits. So what it is it provides income support to individuals who cannot work due to medical reasons. So for example, illness or injury. And when someone applies for EI sickness benefits, they do need to provide a medical certificate. So they need proof from a doctor or healthcare provider that they cannot work due to medical reasons. Again, a person should apply as soon as possible and at least within 4 weeks of the interruption of their earnings due to the medical reasons. And the benefits last up to 15 weeks and they don't go past that. And if a person still needs benefits afterwards, they might be able to transition to regular EI if they qualify for that. And while you're receiving the sickness benefits, you must remain available for work if it weren't for your medical condition. And how much do you get? You can get 55% of earnings up to $573 per week. So who is eligible? As I mentioned before, 1, you have to be unable to work due to medical reasons. So as I mentioned, for example, illness or injury. Your regular weekly earnings from work have to have decreased by more than 40% for at least 1 week. You must have accumulated at least 420 insured hours of work in the 52 weeks before the start of your claim or since the start of your last claim, whichever is shorter. And now we're going to look at another type of EI benefits. These are the caregiving benefits. So these benefits provide financial assistance while you're away from work to care for or support a critically ill or injured person or someone needing end-of-life care. As a caregiver, you don't have to be related to or live with the person you care for or support, but they must consider you to be like a family member. If you're not a family member, either the person needing care or support or their legal representative must complete an attestation form to confirm that they consider you to be like family. For a child, the parent or legal guardian must sign the form to confirm. So there are 3 types of caregiving benefits, and you can see them in this chart that I've created. So one, there's the family caregiver benefit for children, and you can get that for up to 35 weeks. And it's if you're providing care to a critically ill or injured person who's under 18. Then there's the family caregiver benefit for adults, and that you can get for up to 15 weeks. And it's, if you're providing care to a critically ill or injured person that's over 18 years old, 18 or over. And then finally, there's the compassionate care benefits, and those you can get for up to 26 weeks. And that's for a person of any age who requires end-of-life care. So if you're caring for someone who has terminal illness and they're on their deathbed and they need someone to assist them in their final days. So who is eligible? As I mentioned, you must be a family member. Well, you're a family member of the person who is critically ill or injured or needing end-of-life care, or you're considered to be like a family member. I almost said that you must be a family member, but that is not true. If you're considered to be like a family member, that's okay. You just need to provide an attestation if you're not a family member. The second qualification is that your regular weekly earnings from work have decreased by more than 40% for at least 1 week because you need to take time away from work to provide care or support to the person. 3, you accumulated 420 insured hours of work in the 52 weeks before the start of your claim or since the start of your last claim, whichever is shorter. 4, a medical doctor or nurse practitioner has certified that the person you are providing care or support to is critically ill or injured or needing end-of-life care. So for each of these EI benefits that I've briefly looked at, so for the regular EI benefits, for the sickness benefits, and for the caregiving benefits, the applications for all of them are available on the Government of Canada's website. The government really pushes for folks to apply online. It is the fastest way to submit your application. Prior to COVID, an individual could go to a Service Canada location and apply in person. That is very tricky to do these days. There's a very long lineups. If you don't book an appointment, and in order to book an appointment, you have to complete a form on the website. So that can be a little bit tricky to do. But if individuals have questions about how to apply and they can't apply online, they are welcome to call their local legal aid clinic, including SAVEC, just to get information about how to apply. As I mentioned, a lot of clinics, including SAVEC, we won't help with the application form itself, but we can certainly provide information about where to find the application or how to apply if you can't apply online. Okay, so now I'm going to look at some of the newer benefits that the government introduced that are COVID-19 specific. So I'm sure that everyone remembers that at the start of the pandemic, the government introduced the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, known in its short form as CERB. CERB has been discussed a lot. A lot of people applied for it. A lot of people were confused by it. A lot of people didn't understand it. Well, CERB has closed. It no longer exists. You can't apply for it anymore. The government's not giving it out. Instead, the government has created some new benefits. And one of them is the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit, or CWLB for short. I don't know if anyone calls it the CWLB or they have a different way of pronouncing it, but I've just abbreviated it. So this is a benefit that gives temporary income support to employed and self-employed people who cannot work due to a COVID-19 lockdown. So the key thing to remember for this benefit is that a person has to be affected by a COVID-19 lockdown. So when can a person apply? If they meet all of the eligibility criteria, then they can apply on the Monday after the first week that their region is in a designated COVID-19 lockdown. And how long will the benefits last? The government designates the number of weeks you can apply for each lockdown. And if you are eligible, you may apply for all open periods during the designated lockdown in your region. So it really depends on how long the lockdown is going on in your region. And how much can you get? You can get $270. This is after taxes for each 1 week period. So who is eligible? One, you have to reside in Canada. You don't need to be a citizen or a PR, but you do have to reside in Canada. And sorry, a PR is a permanent resident. Two, you have to be present in Canada. Three, you have to be at least 15 years old. Four, you have to have a valid SIN or social insurance number. Five, you can't, when you're applying for this benefit, also be in receipt of EI, the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit, the Quebec Parental Insurance Plan, and short-term disability benefits. You have to have earned at least $5,000 in 2020, 2021, or in the 12 months before the date you apply. And that $5,000 can be from any of the following sources. It could be from employment income, self-employment income, EI benefits, CERB, the Canada Recovery Benefit, the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit, and the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. And then 7, you have to have filed a 2020 tax return. And 8, the region where you live, work, or provide a service is designated as a COVID-19 lockdown region. So on the Government of Canada's website, they have a list of which regions are under a COVID-19 lockdown region. So if you think you qualify for this benefit, you need to first check to see if your region has been designated to be under a COVID-19 lockdown. And if it has, and if you meet all of these eligibility criteria, then you should be able to apply for this benefit. But if your region is not under a designated COVID-19 lockdown, then you will not qualify for this benefit. So further eligibility criteria. So a designated COVID-19 lockdown in your region resulted in one of the following. You lost your job and were unemployed, or you are self-employed but unable to continue your work, or you were employed or self-employed but had a 50% reduction in your average weekly income as compared to the previous year. And then also another eligibility criteria, number 9, you did not do any of the following unless it was reasonable to do so. So that's quit your job, voluntarily stop working, turn down reasonable work, refuse to return to work when asked by your employer, and fail to resume self-employment when it was possible. And also, to be eligible, you have to have received the COVID-19 vaccine, or it is not required to continue your work. So if you don't need the COVID-19 vaccine for your job, then that's okay. You can still be eligible. 11, you were not self-isolating or in quarantine due to international travel. 12, you will file your 2021 and 2022 tax returns by December 31st, 2023, if you receive the benefit for a period starting in 2022. And 13, if you receive the benefit for a period starting in 2021, you will file your 2021 tax return by December 31st, 2022. So this benefit has a lot of eligibility criteria, and you have to meet every single one in order to qualify. And how can you apply for it? Just like with the various EI benefits that I had mentioned earlier, the application for the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit is found online. It's on the Government of Canada's website, and I provided the link here. Although if you were to Google it, I believe the first search result will be for the application page. If not the first search result, then maybe the second or the third. Okay, so another benefit is the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. So this benefit provides income support to employed and self-employed individuals who are unable to work because they are sick or need to self-isolate due to COVID-19, or have an underlying health condition that puts them at greater risk of getting COVID-19. How long do these benefits last? So each Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit eligibility period is for 1 week. So when you apply, your household will receive a payment for that 1 week period. This benefit does not renew automatically. So if your situation continues, you must apply for each period separately, and you can get about 6 weeks worth of benefits between September 27th, 2020 to May 7th, 2022. And the amount you can get is $450 after taxes for each 1 week period. So who is eligible? You know, a lot of these eligibility requirements are very similar to the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit. So, you know, you must reside in Canada. Again, you don't need to be a citizen or a PR, but you have to be residing in Canada, to be present in Canada, to be at least 15 years old. You have to have a valid social insurance number. You have to have not received any of the following benefits for the same period that you're applying for the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. So you can't double dip on benefits. And so those benefits include EI, the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit, the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit, the Quebec Parental Insurance Plan, and short-term disability benefits. Again, you have to have earned at least $5,000 in 2020, 2021, or in the 12 months before the date you apply from any of the following sources. And sources are listed there: employment income, self-employment income, maternity and parental benefits from EI or similar QPIP benefits. And you have to have been unable to work at least 50% of your scheduled work week because you are self-isolating for one of the following reasons. So either you are sick with COVID-19 or may have COVID-19, you're advised to self-isolate due to COVID-19, or you have an underlying health condition that puts you at greater risk of getting COVID-19. So you also, in order to be eligible to apply, you are not receiving paid leave from your employer for the same period. So if you go on leave from work because perhaps you have COVID-19 and you need to self-isolate and just, you know, if you're having symptoms, you need to just rest and recover. If your employer is paying you for that time off, then you cannot apply for this benefit. This benefit is for people whose employers are not giving them a paid leave. And you also, you have to have not be self-isolating or in quarantine due to international travel. So this benefit is really about if you have to self-isolate and you can't work, but it's not if, you know, you travel somewhere just recreationally come back, you need to self-isolate and you decide to apply for this. That's not how it works. So again, as with all of the previous benefits that I've mentioned, to apply for the CRSB, you can do so online. The Government of Canada's website has a web page. I've provided the link there. They really do encourage you, as I mentioned before, to do these applications online. It is faster. But again, I know that for some people it is really difficult. And so if you're watching this and you don't know how to apply online, as I mentioned already, and I'll repeat again, feel free to call your local legal aid clinic just to get some advice and find out what your options are, if it's possible to apply in person or by mail. Okay, and now we'll look at the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit. So this provides income support to employed and self-employed individuals who are unable to work because they must care for their child who's under 12 years old or a family member who needs supervised care. And these benefits, they similar to the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, they are specific to a 1-week period. And so when you apply, your household will receive a payment for that period. This benefit also, like the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, it does not renew automatically. If your situation continues, you must apply for each period separately. And you may apply for any eligible 1-week period for up to 60 days after that period has ended. And how much can you get? You can get $450 after taxes for each 1-week period. So what are the eligibility requirements for this benefit? Again, very similar to the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. Reside in Canada, don't need to be a citizen or permanent resident, be present in Canada, be at least 15 years old, have a valid social insurance number, can't be receiving any of these benefits that are on this slide while you're applying for this benefit. Must have earned at least $5,000 in 2020, 2021, or in the 12 months before the date you apply from any of the following sources. Again, very similar to the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. And you have to have been unable to work at least 50% of your scheduled work week because you are caring for a family member. So that is the difference between this benefit and the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. So, and some further eligibility criteria. You're caring for your child under 12 years old or a family member who needs supervised care because they are at home for one of the following reasons. So one, their school, daycare, day program, or care facility is closed or unavailable to them due to COVID-19. 2, their regular care services are unavailable due to COVID-19. And 3, the person under your care is sick with COVID-19 or has symptoms of COVID-19, at risk of serious health complications if they get COVID-19, as advised by a medical professional, or they're self-isolating due to COVID-19. Also, you are the only person in your household applying for the benefit for the week. So only one person in a household can apply for this benefit. Multiple members of a household cannot apply for this benefit. And the remaining eligibility criteria, you are not receiving paid leave from your employer for the same period. So this is similar to the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. And then finally, again, similar to the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, you cannot have been self-isolating or in quarantine due to international travel. And again, as with all of the benefits that I've already mentioned, the application for the Canada Recovery Caregiver Benefit is found on the Government of Canada's website. Okay, so I pretty quickly provided a general overview of the different federal benefits that exist currently during the pandemic. And now I'm going to look at the provincial benefits that exist. And of the provincial benefits, there's not as many. A key one is Ontario Works, which some of you may be familiar with. Some of you may be in receipt of Ontario Works. This is a benefit that has been existing for many years prior to COVID. But I imagine that because of COVID, there's been an uptick in applications for Ontario Works. So if a person doesn't qualify for EI or any of the other benefits that I mentioned, like the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, then they should try applying for Ontario Works if they qualify. So a person will be subjected to Ontario Works eligibility criteria, which in brief is the following. They must be a resident of Ontario. They must be in need of immediate financial assistance for their basic needs, which is food and shelter. And they must not have any or very, very low income or assets. So for a single person, the maximum asset level they can have is $10,000. So if someone is a single person, meaning they're not married, they don't have any children or dependents, and they're living in Ontario and they have $15,000 in the bank, they will not qualify for Ontario Works. And a person does not need to be a Canadian or citizen, a Canadian citizen or permanent resident to apply for Ontario Works. And one thing I forgot to mention is Ontario Works is the provincial government social assistance program. So it will provide an individual who is low income with a monthly payment to help pay for their rent and their food and their clothing and any of their essential needs. So going back to the last point on this slide, I mentioned that a person does not need to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident to apply for Ontario Works. So if we look at the Ontario Works, the regulation of the law that governs Ontario Works, which is called the Ontario Works Act, the law does not say who is eligible. Instead, it provides a list of persons who are not eligible for assistance. And on this slide, we can see the people who aren't eligible for assistance. So because the law can kind of be interpreted a little bit more broadly, at our clinic and at many legal clinics, we argue that most people without status can apply for Ontario Works because they are neither a tourist nor a visitor. And even if they have a removal order, so meaning that even if the Canada Border Services Agency, which is a branch of the federal government that will deport and remove people out of Canada, even if they've issued an order to remove a person from Canada, but that person isn't able to leave for reasons beyond their control. Maybe, for example, there are no flights available to the country that they're going to be removed to, or maybe there's a war going on in that country and it'd be too dangerous to remove them to that country, then we argue that they will still be eligible for Ontario Works if they also meet the other eligibility criteria. So, if they meet the asset level, if they are a resident of Ontario. So if you have, if you're not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident and you think you qualify for Ontario Works, you're welcome to reach out to your local clinic or to SAVEC, and we can let you know if you qualify or if you don't. And at some clinics, they sometimes even do advocacy for a person who is not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, but they need to qualify for Ontario Works because they need the money, they need to live. So Ontario Works has another program, and it's called the Ontario Emergency Assistance Program. And this program, it provides immediate financial help to people in crisis. And so examples that they give are people who've been affected by COVID-19, people who are being evicted from their home and they face the risk of homelessness, people who are worried about their personal safety, people who are in or they're leaving an abusive relationship and they need, a little bit of financial support to help them move out. Or if they don't have enough money for things like food and housing, they might be able to qualify and apply for this emergency assistance program. So if they do, they can get benefits for sometimes up to 16 days at a time, once every 6 months. Due to COVID-19, the Ontario government has suspended how often people can apply. So you can apply a little bit more than you were able to before COVID-19. And benefits are now available for up to 48 days at a time. Now, the amount of money you get, it's at the discretion of the Ontario Works Administrator. So they'll really assess your situation. And if you qualify, they'll determine how much you should get and for how long you should get that money. Now, to be eligible for this program, you have to be a low-income family or individual. If you're making a middle-class income, you will not qualify for this program. You can't already be receiving Ontario Works or the Ontario Disability Support Program benefits or any federal assistance. So this is for people who are not getting help from anywhere. You can't be a tourist or a visitor in Canada and in Ontario, and you have to be facing an emergency situation where you can't meet basic needs or shelter expenses. So how are applications decided? Well, as the Ontario Works Administrator must be satisfied that you've made reasonable efforts to access other resources which you don't qualify or for whatever reason you're not able to access them. You don't have enough resources to meet yours or your family's basic needs and shelter expenses, and a failure to provide you with this emergency assistance, it could result in a danger to your physical health, or it could even result in a dependent child being removed from the care of the parents, if that's the situation that exists. So where to apply? There's a couple of ways a person can apply for both on regular Ontario Works and then also this Ontario Emergency Assistance program. And one is the Ontario government's website. So the Ontario government has web pages that are specific to Ontario Works, and you can apply online. And then also for the Ontario Emergency Assistance Program, there's specific web pages where a person can apply online. And they can also, a person can call their local Ontario Works office. Again, on the Ontario government's website, there's a list of local offices, and a person can enter their postal code, and then they'll get a result that gives them the name of their local office. So you shouldn't really be calling just any Ontario Works office. You should be calling the one that is that covers your postal code. And if you have questions about where is your local Ontario Works office, you can always call a legal clinic and someone can provide you with that information. It's pretty easy to find, but I know sometimes for people, if they're not tech savvy, don't feel comfortable going on the computer, they get confused, they're welcome to call their local legal aid clinic to get help with that information, with finding that information. Okay, and so that is it. I provided a very general overview of legal aid as well as financial aid during the pandemic. I hope this information was helpful. Again, this information is relevant as of March 2022. Information is constantly being updated, it's changing. So, in the next several months, the federal government may have introduced entirely new benefits that are very different from the ones that I discussed in this presentation. If you have any questions or if you need more information about anything that I discussed during this presentation, you are more than welcome to reach out to me or to reach out to one of my colleagues at the South Asian Legal Clinic of Ontario. I've provided our contact information on this slide, and we are more than happy to help. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ikra, for your presentation. That was a very informative presentation. You discussed a lot of benefits, and I really like your explanation of what is legal aid and what is financial aid. Thank you so much for that. So just two questions. There was a very small question I saw in the chat that said, can clients from Peel region be referred to SALCO? Is that something you guys do?
Yes. Clients in Peel can be referred to SALCO. We assist many clients that live in Peel, so long as the person's living in the GTA, even like outside of the GTA and other parts of Ontario, and if they're South Asian, they're low income, we are happy to assist as much as we can.
Thank you so much. Just give me one sec. So due to the pandemic, obviously all organizations are kind of working from home, and the community is facing a lot of challenges. For Salco specifically, did you guys have to, like, the work that you guys did pre-COVID, is it something that you guys just built upon, or have you guys created some more resources that are pandemic specific?
That's a great question. So I would say it's a mix of both. We did have to, like most organizations, turn to a work from home model. And we unfortunately had to close our doors to walk-in clients, so clients that would walk into the clinic without an appointment. And we really tried to limit how often we would meet clients in person, just for their safety as well as for ours. As pandemic restrictions have been lifting, and as governments have been telling us it's a little bit safer to interact with other people, we are changing our restrictions as well. We now do meet with clients in person on an appointment basis. We do try to limit it to just for urgent matters. We also were, at the start of the pandemic and a bit throughout the pandemic, we created a lot of one-pagers for our clients and for partner organizations to share with their clients. So one-pagers on, the various benefits that came out from the government, changes to the law as a result of COVID-19. We've done a lot of presentations, but we've been trying our hardest to maintain the same service standard that we had before the pandemic began. So instead of meeting clients in person, it's been a lot of phone calls and Zoom meetings, but we have been trying our hardest to make sure that we help folks as much as we can.
Thank you so much for that, Ikra. It's nice to see, like, everyone's adapting to like Zoom and technology these days. Thank you so much for your presentation today, and a big thank you to all of you that were attending today. You guys can copy the information for Salco or write it down somewhere, and if you guys have a personal question, I'm pretty sure Ikra Salco would definitely be willing to answer that. So if you can just leave that on for a bit. And then we have learned a lot from today's webinar, and I feel like any questions that you guys have, you guys can send it out to Salco. If you guys feel like you guys have a question from us, from CASA, you guys can contact us as well. And I look forward to the next webinar we're having on later this month, which would be legal and financial help for businesses. And I encourage that you guys all keep a lookout for that webinar as well. Thank you so much for attending today.